So hi, Jim, welcome back. Hi, Susan, and hi, Michelle. I assume you're all on. Can you hear me, Jim? Good.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Let's see. Lisa just messaged that she's going to miss perhaps all of the meeting and certainly the top of the meeting.
Okay.
I had originally, my intention until I took a quick look at Bruce's note was to say that this would be, we therefore keep this to procedure and keep it very short, 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Given how much work and how much negotiation has gone into the text that existed before Bruce put it on SurveyMonkey, I do think that we need to hold here until we all agree to, starting from the very beginning, putting the demographics up front. I thought we'd agreed that we were going to, and also I noticed that on the thing that seemed to be the most popular of all questions, the allocating a number of points, is no longer exists in the beta. Let me back up. I ought to say to Michelle, who's the only public participant here, Bruce Sherman has put the survey in beta form on SurveyMonkey, and substantively, until we get this out to our test participants and get back the results, I don't think we're going to debate further the text of the survey. But as I say, Bruce, in the course of putting it on SurveyMonkey, has made some changes. I haven't had a chance to digest them. Some of them, for instance, cutting things out of the long lists of things make perfect sense to me. I'm a little concerned about a couple of the other ones. Maybe what we could do here is just briefly you brief us on where you think we are, and then Susan, you tell us whether there are any modifications to the survey of the survey of our testers that you suggested, and then my own sense is that both Lisa and I need to bear down on looking at what the survey looks like. Bruce, you want to start by just talking through what you've done in terms of moving this from where we were at the last meeting onto SurveyMonkey?
Yeah, sure. So I itemized just for commissioners. Obviously, no one else. I forwarded this to Susan and the other consultants so they could see it, but no member of the public has seen my comments in terms of the changes. Some of these, again, are necessitated by formatting in SurveyMonkey. There are certain response categories that SurveyMonkey does not support, but let me just walk through it. When you do this in SurveyMonkey, it is constantly watching how you do it and prompting you to shorten, to tuck, and so forth. So there's that little bit of mechanical prompting from the system itself that one experiences in putting it into SurveyMonkey. So that occasioned shortening the intro text just a little bit more, but no substantive change, just tightening it, all right? So it's not as long. The intro, which means simply welcome to the survey, page 1 of the document, as you see it online. I inserted placeholder dates for when the survey would run, but those are insignificant. We can easily change those. That's not an issue. Putting the demographic questions up front, Peter, is easily fixed if we want to put them in the back. It's no big deal. I put them up front only because traditionally in surveys, they go up front and they get out of the way some very easy to answer questions that ease people into the protocols of the system. So it's really easy for people to say more or less how old they are and whether they rent or own, those kinds of things. They get through those really quickly. And it serves the purpose of easing them into the survey. That's the reason that I put them up there. The other significant change is not. It's
Hold
a
it, hold it, Bruce, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would like, if it's possible, to ask our professional consultant, Susan, if she would agree with your assessment of the demographics going first as a standard thing in surveys.
Yeah, no, that is. I mean, you can, sometimes it comes at the end, but it's very often at the beginning. And in the case of this survey in particular, because where some of the questions require folks to think quite a bit, it is good to just get them, they'll be like, oh, okay, this isn't going to take too long, as opposed to an initial question, which is like, oh, wait, this is going to be harder than I thought.
Okay.
Let me just interrupt for a second, Bruce, too, because two other members of the public have joined us. Cal, Simone, and Jim Feldman. My intention here, and I'm running the meeting at the moment because Lisa has been called away. She may jump on later, but my aim is to have a short meeting, mostly about procedure, not about debating the text of the survey, the draft survey, until we get it tested and get some results. And then we may have to do a lot of spade work to tweak it to on the basis of what we learned from the testers. Bruce has put this into SurveyMonkey, and in the process of putting it in has made some changes, and I'm a little concerned. I guess I did not prepare adequately for this meeting by comparing them to the text that we had at the last meeting. One of those changes is one that he's just talking about, as you two, or you two come on, you three come on, and that is moving the demographics up front. The one thing I would say about our demographics, as we boiled them down, that I don't think is the simplest, is that first one. We're asking people to go put their address in to a city system to find their ANC member. I just maybe it gets people used to the system, but I'm a little concerned that they will kick at that, seeing it as giving us their address, which is not what we're asking for, and will not be what we have when we get the survey results, the real survey results. So I raise that as a concern about this set of demographics up front.
Okay, I have a question, Peter. I'm now confused. Because if we're not going to be talking about the substance of Bruce's changes, then why is Bruce going through the substance of his changes?
So I'd like him to go through the substance of his changes because I'm going to need to review them. It may be that he convinces me every one of them is modest, but I did not, in advance of this meeting, look at his note or at the thing online. And my concern here, Jim, is that over the course of certainly since our last forum, since late July, we have been involved in this really close quarter negotiation.
I know. I've tuned into the meeting. It was excruciating detail. Yeah. I know.
And so I just any change. Look, I don't know. This may all be some common.
But it's all everything that he's just reading basically from his email. So you mean you can read the email and you'd get the same thing, right, Bruce?
Why don't I do this, guys? Why don't I give, for people who haven't seen the email, kind of broad strokes, as Peter's indicating, what I've done. And then we can, in terms of getting into substance, Lisa will obviously want to participate in this. But I can give you, again, there were lots of bullet points in my email because I was trying to be explicit with you so as to leave nothing out. But in some, it's a lot of formatting, given the way SurveyMonkey works and given the way people take surveys online. So in terms of, for example, creating a few more sections to group the questions, that helps people when they're taking a slightly longer questionnaire pace themselves and kind of understand where they are. They get bite-sized bits as opposed to a long list of questions. So that's one thing that I've done. I've indicated what those groupings are. The first, general, as we had previously discussed, the design elements as we previously had discussed. I then went ahead and grouped the affordable housing questions into one section. Again, it's for ease of taking the survey, right? And then also group the size and density, those two questions together. And I took the last three questions of the survey and indicated that those are three additional questions. So it allows people to kind of pace themselves. I indicated in my email something else about doing it that way. The question stems for several of our questions, as we debated many times, are long. And when you put them into a system like SurveyMonkey, it will tell you your question is too long. You need to shorten your question. However, I don't just sort of robotically respond to SurveyMonkey, but having a section heading allows some explanatory text that's not then put into the question per se. The information is still there. It's just situated and formatted a bit differently. So that's, in fact, the way the survey looks online. A lot of what I did in SurveyMonkey to make it, I think, more approachable for people, but not altering the substance of the questions. With respect to those questions, Peter and Jim, I can go into some of the substance. There were a few where I had to, and I've raised questions about it. The question related to surplusing, Lisa had added a line that indicated that the only process whereby the city, there's no process whereby the city can retain ownership. Technically, if the city is leasing the land, it retains ownership, even though it's a 99-year lease or whatever it might be. So we have to take a look at that language, but that was one area. The other thing that I'm suggesting we do is scrap the adjacent sites question. And I'll tell you why. When you put that into SurveyMonkey, and when you look at it again, the question is very complicated. We talked about it a lot. We had lots of discussion. And we have to include another response category for there to be completeness in representing how people would respond to the question. So we have, at the end of the day, 6 response categories, a very complex question. I just think we jettison the question. That's my suggestion. Okay, but we can talk about that. The other thing that you mentioned, Peter, that I think is significant is only that the question that asks people to allocate the 15 points, there is not a facility in SurveyMonkey to do that.
So let me just ask, are we committed to SurveyMonkey because it's better than Question Pro or better than other online things? Do we know whether, look, my problem with that right off the bat is simply, of all the things we discussed from August on, the only one that was really popular among all of us and largely among the advocates who, the participants, the residents who have followed this whole process was that one. And here we get to putting it into the online system to test it, and it's gone, right? I mean, it's gone in the format.
So to be clear, the question's not gone. The question is still there. The way in which people respond to the question is simply then to rank those elements, as opposed to assigning points or numbers to them. So you'd have to take a look at it. We'd have to test it and see how that works. But the question is there, right? The substance is still there.
Yeah, but I agree with Peter. That's inferior, clearly, than the point system that we talked about. And I would like to second his question. Are we married to SurveyMonkey? Is it somehow superior to the other options?
Jim, I can't tell you all the other online systems. As I noted, I've had some facility with SurveyMonkey. So if I was going to be entering this in, and trust me, it takes a long time to get it in and to get it right and to deal with the protocols. It took me probably 12 or 14 hours
Oh,
It sounds simple, but it's not that simple when you get in and start dealing with it. So I just had facility with it. SurveyMonkey is a very standard tool. I would say take a look at the question and take a look at the ranking and think about it for a second, and we could test it and come back to it. I didn't. I would have easily retained the 15 points. Don't get me wrong. If I had a category where I could do that. But in terms of going to another system right now and populating it with the survey, I'd have to learn the system and do it. It's it's just a mechanical thing. But I would again urge you to take a look at the question and look at the ranking.
I did.
Okay.
I did. I've already took the survey. I mean, I didn't actually take it, but SurveyMonkey believes I've taken it.
Oh, okay.
So I can't see it anymore because they think I've taken it. I didn't answer any questions, but
okay. All right.
That's another problem I have with it, but you know, that's minor.
Yeah, well, when we actually run the new survey, we'll do a duplicate and create a new one, not obviously the test module. So that you'll have a chance, obviously, to do it again. Anyway.
So I, Bruce, well, let me just say, I appreciate you putting in the time and putting in the effort to get this into the format. It looks lovely. I'm thinking back on whatever it is now, the dozens of meetings we've had, and how we bore down on the language, on the way it was divided up, and so on. So I think that the simple fact is that we're going to have to await my looking closely at it and Lisa looking closely at it. That may be all of a 24-hour wait or a 12-hour wait, but I do think that we can't make a decision tonight to push the button.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was, it was clear to me that we're going to have to work through all these things. Let me reassure you guys, both of you and the folks listening in, that the questions that we have discussed many, many times are, 95% the same, the language, mind you. It's only an issue here of formatting these questions, grouping them, and so forth and so on. It's largely that happened as a result of this.
This is an example, Bruce. I mean, breaking out affordable housing under a head affordable housing. I mean, this is an issue that we went around and around about housing versus affordable housing, breaking it as a design versus talking about housing.
And Peter, that's easily fixed. We can easily fix that. I was encouraged by the system to do that, and was mindful of being tutored by a system that seems to offer some good advice on these things. But that's okay. We can go back. It's not a big deal.
Okay, so let me suggest that we turn to Susan and the survey of the survey. I'm not sure what the right term is in the profession of survey design, but I want to be sure we have a design for that is ready to go.
Yes, it's ready to go. And Susan can brief on it. She touched on it last time, but she and I have talked about it since. Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, no, can you hear me? Yeah, it's very straightforward. The term is you're piloting the survey. So it's a pilot. And essentially you will, I guess, my understanding, you have your own method for picking the pilot respondents. Yeah. Then the individuals will be instructed to take the survey, as online, as you see it. And then after each question, there's a questionnaire, right? A pilot questionnaire to accompany the survey. And for each question, they will answer a series of 5 questions. So if there are 15 total questions, not the demographics, in the survey, for each question, they will be answering these 5 questions, right? And it's in a simple table. And they have the option, to complete this either electronically or by hand. Some people will prefer to have 2 screens where they can keep it going, in parallel, or they can just write it by hand. So for the first question in the survey question number 1, they will then answer these 5 questions. Was this question easy for you to understand? And they just circle yes or no. If you answered no to the previous question, what, if anything, was unclear to you? And there's space for them to write that. And it says leave blank if you found the question clear. Was your point of view included in the response categories? Yes or no, circle 1. If you answered no to the previous question, what response category would you like to see included? Leave blank if you thought everything was clear. If your response category is included, and then what suggestions, if any, do you have to improve this question? And there's a little space for them to fill that in. So for
Just a couple of questions. Are we suggesting, or should we suggest to the pilot testers that they take the survey in toto and go back and
no, for after each question, they will be this is what I was discussing with Bruce just prior to this call. We will write some instructions on this prior, so that people understand what they're doing as they're starting the pilot. So you're taking the survey, take question 1, then answer the question 1 pilot questions, right?
So, Susan, the one thing that doesn't give us is how long it takes to take the survey.
Well, bear with me. So that is true. So at the end, when they've completed the survey, they then have 6 quick questions to answer. So, and they are overall, how easy did you find it to complete this survey? Very easy, somewhat difficult, very difficult. 2, at any point were you inclined to not complete the survey, right? 3, did you have any technical difficulties completing the survey on your laptop or phone? 4, if you answered yes to question 3, what was the nature of your technical difficulties? 5, approximately how long do you think it will take respondents to complete the survey? And 6, do you have any other suggestions for improving the survey? So bear in mind, actually, Bruce said this earlier, SurveyMonkey, when you design it, actually gives you an estimate for how long it will take. And Bruce, you can share that for when you did.
Yeah, the SurveyMonkey right now projects that it would take 8 minutes to complete this.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but
Susan and I both think that's not realistic, that it's going to take people longer, but it would be a stretch to think it's going to take them 20 minutes.
Yeah. So, but you'll get the ballpark. The real issue is it's not even the language of the questions. You've honed that quite well. It's for people. It's how long people need to think about the questions. People who have not really thought about these issues. Some people may have to think about it a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the other question I had, which was, do you have a proposed lead-in text, the equivalent of our page 1 for the actual survey, to instruct the test takers?
That's what Bruce and I were just saying. It's just we haven't written that yet, but it's just very brief. For after taking each question on the survey, please complete these 5, this table for each question.
Do we want?
And then at the end of the survey, there are a few open questions.
Do we want to say in the lead-in text for the people testing that something to the effect that we actually were hoping that we know that you haven't been deeply involved in this, and that's precisely why we're asking you, because ordinary people need, and not people who have attended all these meetings, need to take the test. So something that says to them that it's just fine if they don't know a damn thing about this.
So what I was assuming, and maybe that's incorrect of me, was that each one of the commissioners would actually have a brief briefing with each of these pilot takers, pilot survey participants beforehand, where you say because we don't want you're representative of an average, typical person in this community, and then verbally tell them what we'd like them to do. Yes, it'll be written as well, but I think it would be good if you also walk them through it.
To the other commissioners, I just say we ought to say this to Zach has submitted names. I'm not sure any of the other commissioners have, but I mean, we ought to say, be sure to brief your first people. I mean, because I mean, mine know that I'm coming out of weeks and weeks and a month and months of meetings about this. And I'm worried that they're going to say, I mean, I'm worried they're going to say, well, gee, I don't know much about this. They're going to clutch. We want them specific. We want them precisely because they haven't.
Exactly. Right.
You might say it to all of them.
Hey, Peter, I will, however, go ahead and write exactly what you're saying, a little bit of an introductory blurb for people that contextualizes this, that would go at the top of the form that we send them, and then segue into the instructions. And we can talk about how we orchestrate this. I think if you want to speak to them individually, that's great too. I was thinking that, of course, we would send this to the group, indicating how they log on to SurveyMonkey, give them the link, give them the form, walk them through the instructions, and then offer to answer any questions that they have prior to taking, and making sure that if they need a bit of assistance, we provide that. And I offer to do that. Susan is actually traveling tomorrow for about a week. So I'm happy to do that. Each commissioner can, but we can figure out among ourselves how best to do that.
Well, that's great. I'd suggest that the verbiage includes the suggestion that the commissioner who invited you to take the survey, you should contact the commissioner if you have any questions or concerns, or you should contact the commissioner who invited you to.
Sure.
Bruce, why don't you just talk about calendar, because the timetable, because I think it may well be we can handle my concerns and the concerns I think Jim may be expressing about.
Oh, I've got more concerns that I'm not talking about, because this is not about that right now, from what I understand.
Well, okay. I mean, we may well be able to address the issues of the formatting in SurveyMonkey quickly.
Right.
But so just tell us what you see as the timetable right
now. I've had my hand up for a while, talk about what we just talked about.
Yeah, Cal, just let's hear the timetable. I'm not going to end this meeting without hearing from you, but I'm trying to sort out kind of where we are. I mean, we may not have a real problem here, but we need to move this survey to test, and we need to get the results back, and we may need to make some real changes. But so let me just hear about the schedule. Bruce?
So the proposed schedule would be that we would do our changes. We would reach out and enlist, go ahead and charge the folks that have agreed to participate in the pilot on Thursday or Friday of this week. Let's just say Friday, and that they then would have the weekend, if they can do it, give them 72 hours to take the test. We get results back early next week, and then we assess those results. Well, obviously, we're going to have feedback. We're going to have comments. We're going to have to make changes. The key issue is how we as a committee process and adopt the changes without the same long period of time that we took developing it. And that then would enable us, I think, to launch on, I would say, October 9th to the public, Peter. That would be my target.
Now, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Bruce. I was going to say that I have already sent out some information to my invitees, going with what Lisa wrote. Lisa said 5 days in what she sent us.
5 days. That's
FYI.
fine. Okay. So we can tweak that if need be with them to see if it's possible for them, but whatever, that's fine. Then we would open it for a period, I think, of no fewer than 3 weeks, or I know some might say 2. I would say 3, and then have it therefore done by the end of October.
Now, I'm Bruce. I have sympathy for that schedule, but you're aware, I'm sure, that Lisa seems to think we're going to try to hit our RFP hearings on the 14th and 18th of October. And I think
Right.
we're just going to have to cope with the issue of whether or not we're going to try to do a very foreshortened in the field period, or I think the more realistic thing is what you're talking about, which is shooting beyond our RFP and feeding it to DemPed sometime after.
Yeah, so Peter, on DemPed's schedule, I understand, of course, that they're going to take this feedback from the community. Their first meetings are 14th and 18th or whatever. And then they come back to the community with their sort of assessment of what people have said. I've understood it was a two-step process. But
by the way, I think the second step is the 18th.
Okay, well, even if that were the case, I would say this, that DemPed is likely not to be in a position to move forward on its own survey consultations with the community. One would argue before the end of the month. I mean, it's a bureaucracy, right? They're not going to on the 19th to go ahead and do something, issue an RFP. So I think we'll have, and besides, we've issued what, 3 resolutions asking them to be mindful. And I myself and you guys I've talked to Jill Stucker. He knows we're doing a survey. He said from my indications that he's flexible. Anyway, I think we'd have probably till the end of the month.
I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah,
I know, you know what I'm saying. And
yeah.
All right, let me just hear from Cal. And then Jim. Well, let's hear from Cal. So I'm sure that we got him in the.
Okay, and I want to do this while Susan was on the line while you were talking about the responses. It sounds like she put together the grid. She's off the call now. That's why I wanted to do it 5 minutes ago. One, I'll make the comments and maybe you can pass them along. First one is, there's 2 of them. One is, I heard her say, if you responded yes to question 3, then such and such and such and such. Could she or whoever's doing this make it so the questions that are part of the feedback process are not numbered but lettered, so that people are not confusing the survey questions, which are numbered, with the feedback part of this thing? So that they're not talking about question 3 of the content; they're talking about question C of the feedback. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, I wanted her to put it up on the screen. I mean, she described it. It's very, it's kind of my head spins when I listen to her talk about it. And unless you guys have access to it, just putting it up on the screen would be very helpful in a meeting like this, rather than just talking about it.
Okay. Although, Peter, I don't know what your pleasure is, how far into the weeds you want to go on this tonight. You're on, Peter.
Yeah. I don't see a need to put it up, and I don't have it, so I don't. I understand what you're saying, Cal. Certainly with the lettering versus I mean, Bruce, is that possible in SurveyMonkey?
Well, no, this is the form that is separate from SurveyMonkey. So Cal's just making sure that people understand that on. Yeah, I take his point, and Cal, we can manage it that way. Thanks for the. No problem. Yeah. And I'm happy to read the questions to you again, if that would be helpful. I know she went through it pretty quickly.
I mean, she probably had it sitting right there, could have put it right up on the screen right then while she was going through it. It wouldn't have added, but 20 seconds to the whole process. But
right. Okay.
No, not really.
Well, I would just do this, Peter, just 1 minute. I'll just take 1 minute, Cal, just to recall. So for each question on the survey, the respondents during the pilot are going to be answering these questions. Was the question easy to understand? And if anything was unclear to you, what was it? Right? So it's about understand how easy it is to understand. Was your point of view reflected in the response categories? And if not, what response category would you like to have included? And then what suggestions to improve the question? So it's really, did you find it clear? And did you see a response category that
wasn't
your need, right? And if not, what category would you include? That was it. And then at the very end of the survey, again, it was, how easy did you find it to complete? on the Likert scale? At any point were you inclined not to take the survey, to stop taking it? Did you have any technical difficulties? If so, what were they? And then about how long do you think it would take to do the survey? That's at the end.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure.
Now, let me turn from Cal to Jim Nash.
Okay.
Jim, you sound like you have a lot of concerns.
No, I don't. I don't have a lot.
Okay. I mean, I would just counsel you that I mean, the last few meetings when you were off, we kind of got to sort of an agreement. I mean, one of the reasons I'm nervous about where we are with the changes on SurveyMonkey is because each of these things was negotiated. Are these discrete issues that we can deal with? And if so, let's see if we can deal with them now.
Yeah, well, in some ways, I'm going to be asking these questions just to be more informed about it. I don't think that it's my place or it's the time for me to try to change. You guys have been working really hard on this. I was gone, so it's a fait accompli, as more or less as I see it. So I'm not going to be pushing for anything in particular, but I have a couple of questions. Number one is that I agree, and I always have agreed with Ron's email comment that if we're going to ask people, are you a for or against redevelopment, we have a box to let them say why. And there is no such thing. I'm guessing SurveyMonkey won't allow that either. Is that correct, Bruce?
No, you could have an open-ended response box, Jim. Our issue around that was who's going to read all these things and how are we
I will. I'll read them all.
I know, but we have issues about systematizing that. I mean, it's more involved than just reading them. You have to analyze them, categorize them, assess.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have to do all of that necessarily, but it won't be. I don't think it will be all that hard. I did this before in that other survey. You develop a couple of categories. I don't and things that don't fit in. They're small numbers usually. It's not that hard. I've done it.
Can I just say, Jim? I mean, I understand the impulse behind what you're suggesting, but I think that the other commissioners on this committee have pretty much said we think that open-ended questions are going to take us down a rabbit hole. If you more power to you, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, then what happens? Then you say, "Well, I've read the 1700 and Gosselin." Sherman has.
I know. Okay. All right.
God, we're gonna have to take 2 weeks off and read them, and then I just think that we.
All right.
Playing a very tight schedule on a very specific issue that has a lot of heat around it, and so people are gonna put.
All right, Peter, I understand what you're saying. You don't have to say any more, and I will.
I just want to say, I assume this is addressing your point, which is Michelle Rowland writes a note to me saying people should not have to justify or explain their answers. I assume that's in reference to the question of open-ended, but I'm not sure. Anyways.
Well,
okay.
I assume you all have read Ron's email explaining why he's for that. I think
he's mentioned that, Jim, about 10,000 times. So I know.
Yeah. Okay. Right. All right. Oh, good. Well, then I don't. I admit defeat, and I will let it go. I didn't want this question at all.
Process.
Well, I didn't want this question at all. Yeah. But if I said, all right, if we're going to have the question, then we have to have this. So I've lost on both accounts, but that's the way it works. That's all right. Okay, another question. So we'll move on. I don't want to belabor that. But I regret that. Okay, second thing is, I saw on the survey I took, Bruce, the language about median family income, and this is a technical point. I thought it was median area income. That's number one, but maybe I'm wrong. I just want to be sure we're right on that. Secondly, in that same question, it says 30 to 80% of median area income, but actually, from what I know, it can go as low as 0%. And there are three categories: 0 to 30, 30 to I think 70, and then 70 to 100. That's my understanding. Am I wrong on that?
This is one of these questions too, Jim, that we've scrubbed 8 ways from Sunday.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I think it's the range of affordable housing in terms of qualifying for affordable housing is typically 30 to 80% of the median family income. So I think everybody's seen those questions in this whole process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We spent a lot of time on those affordability.
Okay.
Housing ones. Yeah.
And I think,
All right.
and I think the other thing is that I mean, I think the figures that we're using, we may use the single figure also, but we had in the last version of the draft, we had both the single and family.
It's still in there, Peter. We still have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's MFI, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, there's very little language change in terms of the wording of the questions compared to where we last left it last week with the final revisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. That's it. I have been heard, and I recognize the difference between being heard and having agreement. You don't agree, but I've been heard. So that's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my suggestion, and Andrea, you came on after the meeting was underway for a while. Where we are here is that one, Lisa is not attending. I'm not sure why, but she messaged me just before the meeting. Two, Bruce has put this into SurveyMonkey and tells us that there are some, because of the limitations and coaching that SurveyMonkey does, there have been some changes, and Bruce has said they are basically modest changes that have had to be made in the text as we last left it a week ago.
And Peter, I would just add for Andrea's benefit, the text is very minor changes there. It's the formatting of the questions and putting them into sections so that as someone is moving through this, they experience bite-sized pieces of question content, and it helps pace them as they move along. It's that. And then one area where you might not have heard this, where we had a designated response category of the 15 points to be allocated across 5 different elements, there is no such response category protocol in SurveyMonkey. So it's a ranking of those elements that is in there now. The question's the same, the elements are the same, it's just a different response approach, given the way that SurveyMonkey does that.
Okay. So does this mean that the survey has not yet gone to the test
No, it has
respondents? Okay.
No.
Because I had somebody, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Andrea, you were here for Bruce, I think, talking about the tentative schedule. So I think you heard that.
I don't know if I was. It doesn't sound familiar, but
Let's quickly, Bruce, tell her. I mean, I don't want to reprise the whole meeting.
I'm sorry.
This is 10 seconds. Andrea, we would try to get this to the test takers, the pilot participants on Friday of this week. They would have 3 to 5 days to complete it. We would assess their feedback, and we would try to launch this on October 9th.
Okay, great.
Feldman, what Jim? You're on mute.
Sorry. So I was just wondering, do you have any information on how this is going to actually get distributed to people on October 9th? I mean, we're just not there yet, or I just was wondering if there's any.
So I could do a little bit of report on that. I don't quite know how we're going to distribute the survey itself, but Lisa is exploring, and we've been going back and forth with emails about the cost, and at least as we've looked at it initially, it's a doable thing of sending out cards to everybody in the every household in the ANC, saying that this survey is going to be fielded, and here's the link, and
A postcard, you mean, kind of thing.
postcard, yeah. But no, we have not distribution. I mean, what we've talked about in meetings in August and coming into September is that I think, and Bruce, you correct me if I'm wrong here, that we think it needs to stay online, and that for people who can't take it online, each ANC commissioner, I mean, as part of trying to drum up as robust a response to this as possible, should walk his or her district, and for those who are not computer capable, help them take it right then and there at their door with their laptop that the commissioner would bring. You know, but these, I actually thought we'd devote this meeting to some of that discussion, but I think that just getting it up on the SurveyMonkey turns out to have presented some required some changes that I think we just need to think about for.
Just one other, but I don't want to prolong things, and if you don't want to go into this, but have you done any thinking about security in terms of people taking multiple tests?
Yeah, Jim, we have, and here's the thing about that. You're taking the test is limited to an IP address. Jim Nash just mentioned that he thought he wasn't taking it, but just reviewing it, but SurveyMonkey thought he had taken it, so now he can't even look at it again. So you can't take it twice. Now, that is one aspect of it, right? Another aspect that various people have asked us to consider is being bombarded by people who are prompted to take the survey outside of our ANC to try to skew the results. There are many different scenarios that we could envision whereby there would be this kind of intervention. And there are only so many ways you can get around that. SurveyMonkey does have a provision that would require one to actually provide a physical address and limit the survey to people within a certain address. But we haven't decided to do that. And that even has problems because people could go in and lie about their address. So either it's a little tough, Jim. The limitation is you can't take it from the same IP address. You can't take it twice from the same phone or computer.
And one other thing, Bruce, I do think that the issue of providing an address and finding your ANC commissioner is going to provide something of a filter. Now, of course, somebody could go in and give my address over and over again, I suppose. But I mean, you know, they're going to have to do it from different IP addresses. So I do think we have some security. Andrea, I'm given. Yeah, let's see if we can keep this a short meeting. So, Andrea.
So I can't ask the question.
Oh, you can ask the question. Ask it succinctly.
Okay. What if two people share a computer? Like, you know, that happens occasionally. There might be, so in other words, for let's say two people in a household who both are adults and want to answer, but they only have one computer, that means one of them would have to go to the library or something. I don't know. They'd have to find another computer to use.
Well, we think a lot of people are going to use their phones, Andrea, but you have to find another device. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I suggest that we wrap this meeting up right now? And my suggestion, Bruce, is that you just we hold everything and I will bear down on your note and the differences between the last one and the last draft and this. I completely understand what you're saying, and it looks beautiful, and it may be perfectly acceptable. I just want to be sure I've reviewed that, and I want to be sure that Lisa has reviewed it.
Sure, sure.
So, and then I think that once we pump it out, once we know when we're going to send it out, I think we ought to just schedule a meeting on the assumption, you know, for when we think we're going to get results, so that we know when. I mean, I think we're just going to have, that could be a long and could be a difficult meeting if we have to work through a lot of tweaks. So the moment we send it out, let's schedule for 5 days hence a survey committee meeting. Make
Sure.
Okay, well, now wait, let me be clear on the next steps. The next steps are Peter and Lisa do their homework and review Bruce's email. Then we invite our designated people to begin the review process. Do we wait to, but I'm a little unclear as to the going from the first to the second.
So let me try, Bruce. So Lisa and I are going to review this. Once we decide everything is all right, we're going to send this out. Bruce is going to send this out to our test takers. We're going to give them a certain amount of time. Bruce has talked about 3 to 5 days to come back with their having taken the test and reacted to the questions. Then we're going to review the test takers' results and try.
No, I get all that, Peter, but then that means I need to, I have emails from my test takers. Do I have to send those to you then, Bruce?
Ideally, and again, we could exchange email on this, we would do a kind of a batch note to everybody, Jim, at one time, indicating that here is the link, here is the form you're complete to evaluate the questions, here are the instructions to do that. If you have any questions, contact me or contact your commissioner, and we answer their questions before they take it. But we set everybody off at the same time, right? We just open it up and then we indicate, get it back to us in X number of days.
Jim,
okay. So
I agree. I think we need to send this out from a central distributor, and so you should send Jim and send all of us the names and the email addresses of your testing.
I should send the names and emails to Bruce.
To Bruce, I'm sorry, to Bruce.
Yeah, send them to me. Everybody's been sending them to me. I've got most people's. There are a couple commissioners, I think, that are still coming in, but I've got most of them already.
I'm one, yeah.
Okay,
I'm one.
okay, yeah, that's great.
You can from here on, after that, after we get the results and get the test takers, the pilot test takers answers to the questions about the questions. We may have to tweak the questions. We may have to reduce the questions. We may have to simplify the questions. We're going to have to do that work quickly. And then Bruce has talked about October 9th, getting the thing out. But the other thing that's going to happen after we tweak the questions and before we send it out is we're going to have to distribute like crazy something, cards, pound the pavement, to get people to take the damn thing. So
right. I understand all that.
Okay, Michelle, how about wrapping up at 8? It is now 7:56. You have your hand up.
Okay. I will try to be quick. I have a question that actually relates to DEMPED based on something you said. And I do have one quick comment. You don't have to answer, just want to bring it up about one of the questions, which we had discussed before, the thing about the possible impacts, that question where you then inserted language about the city says it will, whatever. They want the housing because of X, Y, and Z. And it was good that you said the city's reason is da-da-da. I do just want to repeat what I think we've said before, and I want to add a second thing. This was not meant to be a question that persuaded. It was meant to be a neutral question, which listed possible concerns that people had mentioned many times. These are all legitimate, except maybe the electrical grid. And someone can support housing and still say, I want housing, but I am concerned about overcrowding of schools. I am concerned about parking. But this does not, so someone supporting housing can still have concerns And if someone is like, I don't want to list any concerns, they don't have to give any numbers to anything. And it does seem to me that having the text of the question itself, having the text of the city wants to do it because of XYZ, it does to a little bit give an imprimatur that the ANC supports that position. So just think about that. I don't want to belabor it anymore. Peter, you mentioned that you thought DEMPED, okay, the meetings are October 14th and 18th, and it sounded like you thought they were going to do step 1 on the 14th and maybe step 2 on the 18th. I assume the 2 meetings were for just so different people could go. What do you know what the deal is?
So Michelle, let me say, I am very skeptical about DEMPED in general, and they talked for a long time about just 1 meeting, and now they're talking about 2. But look, I don't know. I mean, Bruce has had more conversations with Jill than I have had with Jill of late. Bruce, do you have the sense that there are more meetings after the 18th?
I just understood that there would be an initial consultation or 2 to give people different times to participate.
Yeah.
And there would be a follow-on meeting where they come back with their basic assessment, what they heard, what they found, so forth and so on, check back in with the community. I understood it was that kind of a 2-step process. I guess for the purposes at hand regarding the timing of our survey, I don't think we're going to have any problem, to be honest with you, coming into a time frame that DEMPED is working on, because our survey is going to be done at the very latest by the first week of November, and DEMPED is not going to be in a position to do anything.
Okay, so
Yeah.
your sense was what my sense had been, but then Peter seemed to feel differently, that their stage 2, where they come back with the results, was not going to be October 18th. The October 18th is for those who can't make October 14th, come on the 18th.
I just say,
And then
I'm
step
happy
2. What?
I'm happy to take odds that the 18th is the last meeting. You know.
That's what I heard. I heard that 14th is where the community weighs in, 18th is where DEMPED tells you what they've decided.
That's my
Well, I mean, that's incredibly unfair, though, because
Yeah.
not everyone can make it on a certain day.
They don't care.
I mean,
Well, there's that. And it's a Saturday. People can
Okay.
be gone. Oh, well, this is,
so
oh,
it's
well.
now 8 o'clock. Do we, is there
Yeah.
other useful business we can do right now? I agree, Michelle, and you know, we will pursue that with them, but I'll make a, you know, real bet on what the results are going to be. I think Andrea's got it right. Okay, I think we're finished for right now, unless somebody else has pressing business.
I just have a question. Are we meeting next week?
Let me just say this, it's still, Zoom has a slot for us to meet next week, Tuesday. I think it really depends on when I suspect we're probably going to nudge that off to later in the week, because we need to have the results back from the test.
Well, if it's going to be a different day of that week, I'm going to need to know this week, or have some input into it.
We're going to do the best we can.
Yeah.
We're going to do the best we can, but we need to get the test results back. That's when the big next tranche of work has to be done.
My guess is that would be 2 weeks from today, but
Okay.
If it's not going to be on a regular Tuesday, on a Tuesday night, could you make sure that an email gets sent out, at least to those of us who've been participating, just so that we know?
Absolutely.
Would be great.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks.
And we will be back in touch. How do you stop? Pause? Stop. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now, and we're going to end the meeting. Thanks.
Okay, guys. Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
sorry, are you saying that we should release next Tuesday and not hold it?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, all right.
Not
Peter, send me,
Got it,
Peter,
got it,
Peter, do you
got it.
want me to post this, Peter? If so, send me the link.
Yep.